10 p.m. We'll take a look at the top stories of the day. In UBC News tonight, business community floating COVID-19 guidelines. Arua oxygen cylinders dry up. Inter-district movement guideline floated. And in sports, Toro United boosted by one expert ahead of Titanic decider clash. You're watching UBC News tonight. Welcome once again. In our top stories of the day, the business community operating in Kampala has been given an ultimatum of 2 days to ascertain whether they are fit to continue with their activities in accordance with the COVID-19 guidelines. The warning has been sounded by the resident city commissioner, also a member of the Kampala COVID-19 task force, on an inspection tour in Kampala, noting a massive violation of COVID-19 guidelines. Kaya reports.
Last week, President Yoweri Museveni declared a 42-day partial lockdown due to the increasing cases of COVID-19 in the country. The president directed institutions of learning to close as they observe the effect of COVID-19, giving the business community a leeway to operate with keen observation. The Kampala resident city commissioner, together with the leaders of the business community, have made an impromptu tour of the central business district to ascertain whether the standard operating procedures set against COVID-19 are being observed. At Chikubo Trading Center, the RCC was informed how Kampala Capital City Authority staff is violating these guidelines by allowing vendors to operate in the corridors, hence increasing on the numbers and violation of COVID-19 guidelines.
Enforcement officer wa KCCA bagenda ni bamanya nti omukulu ajja wano ne baloka bakuwa obusimu abantu bonna bava mu luguudo abali akamala okugenda ne baddamu ne beeyiwa mu luguudo kamera nizikuba ffe netuba nga twononeka eri ensi yonna n'omukulembeze w'eggwanga.
Haji Muhammad Katimbo told the leaders that the vendors had been tipped off to vacate the area because of their visit. UBC TV cameras captured the business activities after the impromptu visit, and it was business as usual. Observing that the COVID-19 guidelines are being violated, Kampala resident city commissioner Hood Hussein warned the business community to comply or write a report recommending their closure in 2 days.
Chikubo downtown, we are watching you on CCTV camera. We are going to close you, particularly Chikubo. If you don't abide by the rules, we are going to close you.
The team proceeded to the new tax park, where it was noted that there was overcrowding by stationary long route vehicles.
We are giving you up to tomorrow at midday for you to remove the taxis, the coasters that you have left idle in these tax parks. If you don't remove them, we are going to remove them and take them to an area where, if you are to get it back, you may have to suffer the consequences.
On their way to Kisenyi bus terminal, the team sensitized border riders how to maintain the standard operating procedures against the virus and interacted with drivers operating in Kisenyi Tax Park, advising them to maintain the standard operating procedures against COVID-19.
Era njala okutegeeza buli muvuzi wa boda mu Kampala Central Division yaddala mu entwalira ddala nti olunaku olw'enkyo kukwata nga tolina sanitizer ku piki. Ne stage ogisiŋŋaana nga teyinaawo mazzi na sabbuuni, eyo stage tugenda kugiggalawo kubanga olwaleero RCC wa Kampala tubadde naye nga tutambula ku gulawundi n'atwongera ebiragiro.
To those operating in arcades, there was no observance of the COVID-19 guidelines, with overcrowding imminent.
This is the center of the further spread of this epidemic, and we are not going to kneel down. We are not in a cocktail party really, guys. We are recommending that Kampala goes in a lockdown. Me, I'm going to recommend, because the president has played his part. The leadership is playing its part. of reminding people that the disease is real.
The team proceeded to Usafi Tax Park in Kampala, where leaders were sensitized and warned against the dangers of COVID-19 and observance of the COVID-19 guidelines. At Owino Market, Ham Shopping Center, although a public address system was being used to warn people about the deadly virus, many were forced to wear masks. The Kampala Resident City Commissioner, Hood Hussein, is expected to write a report about observance of COVID-19 guidelines detailing how they have been abused. Sudat Kaye, UBC.
Arua Regional Referral Hospital is running out of oxygen to manage COVID-19 patients and others in the intensive care unit due to a rise in COVID-19 cases in the region. The oxygen shortage is an additional challenge to the 36 capacity beds at the COVID treatment center. Chances are high that soon the treatment center may run out of space. Details follow.
While speaking to UBC TV on Friday, Arua Director Dr. Philbert Nyeko revealed that the hospital only has oxygen to cater for 2 patients in the whole hospital.
The oxygen capacity will be surpassed. Our ability to provide oxygen for the hospital and the region would fail if we get just 2 more patients on oxygen.
With this disturbing situation the hospital is embroiled in amidst increasing COVID-19 cases, the hospital management is now advocating for West Nile districts to consider home-based care for mild COVID-19 cases to create more space for those in critical condition.
Manage home-based care to take care of the asymptomatic and the mild cases and some of the moderate cases, only referring to us the severe cases so that we can take care of those ones.
In the COVID-19 treatment center is also a woman who has given birth, while another is expected to deliver any time from now, who all need oxygen supply. Despite the alarming fears about COVID-19, many people in Arua City are still reluctant in observing SOPs and wearing masks while in public places. The Bishop of Madi and West Nile Diocese Right Reverend Charles Collins and Daku stressed the need for the general public to adhere to the presidential declaration during the 42 days.
Death cases have increased, which is worrying. The infection continues to increase, yet hospitals and health facilities are full, sometimes no capacity to handle the patients.
Many passengers have been allowed to freely cross from one district to another on the first day of the 42-day inter-district crossing ban. Although the ban was intended to limit the spread of COVID-19 through limitation in human movement at different district entry points, the emphasis was more in means of transport, but non-passengers.
The 42-day inter-district border cross movement suspension has come into effect this Friday as a stop measure against COVID-19. On major highways in the Kampala metropolitan area, hundreds were left with no option but rather to opt to footing.
Entambula tulinyeko motoka netujja tutukaali driver natugamba mufulume
bakati tuva mu Lwadde tulina omulwadde ali bubi naye ate batukozesa bino road block.
This is Namagunga, located along Kampala Jinja Mukono Express Highway. It is at this station that the Uganda police has manned a cut-off point to restrict movement of people from both districts. However, the question remains, as you can see, a section of people moving on foot from Buyukwe or Jinja side, crossing to Mukono side. This leaves a lot of questions as to whether the essence of restriction of cross-border movement will be reached or maintained.
Mvudde Lugazi naye ngedako mbalala tata wange mulwadde ngate kinkakatako genda
nende kulaba nga babuuza bayambadde masiki kyokka naye ngate amazima gali nti ovanga ovweri nodde eno teri mazzi gonaaba mu ngalo.
At ZIWA Trading Center, a few meters away from the bridge along Kayunga Mukono Highway, was also the cutoff between Kayunga and Mukono districts. Here, the same trick of passengers crossing from either sides on foot was applied as police nearly looked on. Just like at all other cut-off points at Kawanda along Gulu-Kampala Highway, boda operators and pedestrians crossed without any interference from either side.
Ndowooza nti oba lockdown bagiteekawo ne ku public transport ebeerewo oba myezi ebiri tugimale waka wegiggwako ebiri tuddemu tukole.
This is not the only disease we are having in Uganda. There are very many diseases. They will let us work with those diseases. It's me who knows. If it catches me, it's me who knows. The much energy and the emphasis they have put on COVID, why didn't they put it on AIDS and other diseases?
However, unlike the previous days where a heavy traffic is always the order of the day, this time round it was a bit a relaxed day for those driving to Kampala and from. The inter-district movement embargo will run for the 42 days beginning this Friday. Robert Onyango, UBC News, Kampala Metropolitan.
Still about COVID-19, police in Jinja have this morning mounted an operation to impound vehicles breaching the guideline on movement of vehicles from one district to another. President Museveni announced a partial lockdown a week ago with restrictions on passenger transportation from one district to another as a preventive measure against the surging cases of COVID-19. Watch.
Security personnel in Jinja have blocked all entry points to Jinja City in a move aimed at implementing the directives against inter-district movement as a preventive measure against COVID-19 transmission. Police put barricades at various entry and exit points to Jinja City that left quite a number of people stranded on the road.
Idukira nti waneeno idinda egemagananibwa ni nairo buli kaseera tikiti kuba tebasobola kutegeera nti ono tuwa idinda ono tuwa idinda tebali tubuuza card but already we are in district inside.
At both the new and old bridges, motorists were barred from accessing the city with only a few private cars allowed to move after being checked thoroughly. However, vendors who decided to walk on foot were also allowed to access the city center after explaining themselves to the law enforcement.
Nyigiriza nnyo kyembadde nsaba gavumenti yali badde tukolanga bwe yakoze mukono wa Kiso ne Kampala batuyambye tusaze ku mmere y'abantu amanda tetulina kye tufumbisa.
At the taxi park, mostly at long-distance routes, there were no taxis, and the few available ones were also just parked. The taxi operators, including taxi drivers, have appealed to government to allow them operate mostly in nearby districts like Buyikwe, Kayunga and Mayuge, as it is the case with Kampala, Wakis and Mukono, under strict observance of guidelines.
Government etuwemere tusobole okufuna ekyokulya, otherwise agatali ekyo twidakola otwena akatiisa kubanga abasirikale bali kunjira baliko bati tojeganga aye ate nga ate Kampala abantu bali kuva Entebbe bali kuide Kampala badye wa Kiso.
Jinja City DPC Maurice Niyonzima says the operation is aimed at implementing the regulations intended at curbing the spread of COVID-19.
Tukiriza they are essential workers. Essential workers kitegeeza nti banga ba doctor, bakora mu kitongole ky'amazzi, abamasanyalazi, the banks, ate nabo balina clearance.
The operation left motorbicycles and vehicles impounded with movement paralyzed.
In more news, motorists in Isinjilo district have continued to transport passengers to the nearby districts despite the government's move to banning inter-district movements. In Isinjilo district, border cyclists are seriously aiding the transportation of passengers from Isinjilo to Mbara through porous routes.
Police in Isinjilo district have taken advantage of passenger vehicle restrictions to aid stranded passengers cross from one district to another following the closure of inter-district border. Whereas security has managed to impound some motorcyclists, a number of them have continued to transport passengers through the porous and guarded borders. It should be noted that on Sunday, President Museveni communicated a number of measures intended to minimize further spread of COVID-19, among which included banning of inter-district travels. Along Mbarara Kikakete Road, although police mounted a roadblock to stop both public and private vehicles from crossing to either district, motorcyclists were still seen crossing. Some police officers were seen allowing some vehicles to cross after receiving calls. Also, at some points, taxis would bring passengers and give them to the border cyclists to proceed to Isinjiro or Mbarara. Police kept them under surveillance and most of the motorcyclists were impounded in the process, with some given express penalty receipts. Some of the passengers were seen carrying their luggage, walking to their different destinations, while others took advantage of some vehicle attached to a certain media. The Rizi Region Police spokesperson, Samson Kasasida, says they only allowed vehicles belonging to essential workers, expectant mothers and the sick to cross.
As for emergencies, especially medical and other emergencies that need referral, especially within the region and those coming from other regions, like those who want to come to the Mbarara Regional Referral Hospital and other hospitals within other districts, those will be permitted on grounds that they present medical forms.
Rizi Region Police Commander Richard Eseka has urged all district border riders, chairpersons, to ensure they deter their colleagues violating SOPs. This also requested security to arrest and charge all those border cyclists found without masks illegally transporting passengers.
Tulina okukola ng'abakulembeze kusutukiramu ne tugamba ne poliisi ne tugenda ne tukwata abantu abataddewo stages.
They also void to intensify neighborhood watch so as to deter further transmission of COVID-19.
Bakubanga kati kye tuliko toyinza kulwanirira bulamu ng'ate olagenda eri n'asitula abantu n'abaleeta tamanyi baleese oba balwadde ate n'akupaakinga oludda n'akuleetera obulwadde.
Isinjiro, being a border district, poses a very high risk of spreading COVID-19 since there are several people crossing from Tanzania into the district through porous borders.
Hundreds of residents got stranded at Busia border after they were denied chance to access their home districts. This was during an operation by security personnel aimed at enforcing inter-district movement restrictions as per the presidential orders. Details follow.
This was the situation at Butemba Bridge along Toro Busia Road when security enforced cross-district movement restrictions. Police in Toro turned away numbers of people who had expected leniency from the authorities. A number of people who got stranded at Butembe Bridge border connecting Toro to Busia district, however, included students still returning to their homes from distant schools.
Mimi nimetoka Kenya. Niko na gari langu, ninaenda Nyanya huko mbali. Tumekuja tumefika border, tumekatiwa reducer, tumekatiwa insurance. Kufika hapa tunaambiwa gari yoyote haingii huko Tororo.
Tunaomba president wetu utuombe msamaha, tunakuomba msamaha, utuachilie sisi tuende nyumbani. Sisi ni maskini, ndio sababu unaona tunatembea nje, tunaenda nchi ya nje kutafuta, kwa sababu nchi ya Uganda yuko chini sana.
Among the people denied inter-district movement included peasant farmers and some who had gone to do business in Busia. There is still communal ownership of land and from the interconnected districts, and so some gardeners who on their way to the farms.
Mva kulima. Wentuse wano nga nsanze roadblock. Kati simanyi kiki ekiriwo okutuuka awo ne baŋŋaana nti tutogenda ddayo mabega. Simanyi ate eno ye maka.
Trucks and private cars from Busia were also denied entry into Tororo, which caused traffic jam at the bridge. Police says the operation will continue for the next 42 days.
Because we realize that people are using, panyas are using small roads, pretending to go to cross districts to dig and etc. Yet others are pretending. So leaders will help us to give us information and we act. But also we sensitize, we want to talk to people and they understand.
Nonetheless, earlier in the day, there was some reluctancy as some police officers were seen allowing few travelers to come to either side.
Twaise Kenya bulungi ne tuzza wano tugamba katugenda at least waka mu kyalo naye kati laba wano tuli kubona abonera mu kubo okuva ku makya tewali kye tuliddeko ate bali kutujjaako sente banange Museveni wandi tuyambye.
Please report. You have a right not to give out money for any reason. So, but we are watching commanders, we also move, we have PSU, so we are moving and watching what they are doing.
Police, however, accused the locals of taking things for granted and undermining authority, even during such hard times.
People are giving us information, not only crossing the road in the gardens, but also jumping borders. Border puts you to the boundary of one district, the person crosses on foot, then he finds another border. So all those tricks, taxis, etc. So we are getting information, people are concerned, and every day we shall be adjusting accordingly.
Well, doctors have discouraged the public from self-medication with COVID-19 tablets by the public. According to Dr. Richard Idrol, these are said to be dangerous and harmful to an individual who is COVID-19 negative.
Uganda is experiencing a high upsurge in the numbers of COVID-19 cases daily. These infections in the new wave are spreading at a high rate, according to the health officials. The President Uganda Medical Association, Dr. Richard Idrol, says the new wave has brought in fear in the public.
In the past weeks, we have been getting over 1,000 new infections every day, and several people dying daily. This appears to have precipitated or brought about fear in the public and has led to a lot of questions. What can people do?
The doctor says over 80% of the public do not know whether they are affected by the disease or not, resulting to big numbers of people flocking pharmacies for self-medication.
And then another 15% of persons have this mild disease, and most of this care can be provided at home. And these are mostly the people who are going to pharmacies to buy medicines so that they can be treated. But the other group who are going to pharmacy are buying medicines to hoard in case I fall sick, that there should be something.
The drugs purchased for self-medication by individuals, many are said to be dangerous to negative COVID-19 individuals, causing more harm to the body.
There are people who have been taking vitamin C that they are preventing COVID. They have been taking it for months. You are starting now to hear about abdominal pain, people having pains in the abdomen. The steroids, dexamethasone and prednisolone especially. These are very dangerous drugs. You take it for 2 or so weeks, your cheeks are going to swell.
For one to undergo self-medication, Dr. Richard articulates minimum procedures to undertake rather than buying the medication.
There's only a situation where you have somebody available, either in a family member, a friend, or in the community, somebody knows you are there. 2, that you have made a health center where you go, a health unit aware, that they can also check on you, or you can call them, that in case of emergency, you can reach there.
He urges the Ministry of Health officials to carry out more awareness and sensitization about COVID-19 to the public. Lydia Chomkama, UBC News.
Moving on, the Archbishop of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Dr. Daniel Mate, has advised Ugandans to observe all the standard operating procedures in order to hold back community COVID-19 spike. This was at a press briefing at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Makerere, Kampala.
The Adventist Church, His Grace Daniel Mate, has asked members of the public to observe all set guidelines aimed at preventing COVID-19. The Archbishop's guidance comes at a time when Uganda is experiencing COVID-19 spike that has necessitated a partial national lockdown.
Kutuusa obubaka okuyigiriza okusaba batuyita ku radio ku TVs n'emikutu abantu baffe basobole okuyambibwa nga tuli mu mugalo ogufaanana bwe guti.
Archbishop Mate advises the public to revive home-based prayers so as to spiritually fight the pandemic and overcome the evil spirits as the country battles the COVID-19 pandemic.
Tukubiriza abatata bamama n'abantu fena eyo mu maka twetabe mu kusinza kuno waberewo enteekateeka ennungamu eneeyamba abantu baffe okusigala nga basinza Katonda naye nga tuli mu maka. Era olw'enteekateeka eno tusaba ebirabo ebitundu by'ekumi n'ebirala byonna ebyo bijja kusigala nga bikolerwa mu maka. Kati tuvumirira ebikolwa ebyettemu mu ngeri yonna ebibaddewo kati ebigenda mu ggwanga. Era nze kyemanyi ng'omuntu ategeera ebyawandiikibwa, Mukama kyeyava awa amateeka erimu ku mateeka ligamba nti totanga.
This was at a press briefing at Uganda Adventist Center, located at Kanomwama Gaddafi Street, opposite the Law Development Center, Makerere University, Kampala. Uganda has so far registered a cumulative tally of 56,949 COVID-19 cases since the outbreak, with 47,760 recoveries and 402 deaths. Irene Faith Nantongo, UBC News.
The Minister of State for Higher Education, Dr. John Chrysostom is grateful to President Yoweri Museveni for reappointing him as a minister for the third time. He pledges to emphasize the campaign against school dropouts and implementing government programs aimed at improving the education sector. Now, Minister Muyingo says with the guidance from the Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, he will continue to caution educationists and school proprietors against sabotaging government programs aimed to help and improve teachers' welfare.
The appointed State Minister for Higher Education, Dr. John Chrysostom Muyingo, has cautioned parents against promoting child marriages which contribute a lot to school dropouts. Muyingo also says that through their guidance of the Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, he will work tirelessly to make sure that learners have lunch at school, improve the teaching of science and vocational skills, revamp traditional schools and improve the teachers' welfare by implementing the teachers' policy, among others.
That are needed. Prepare our tutors, prepare our lecturers, prepare our teachers, so that they prepare our children, equip them with the skills that are needed in the job market. Of course, the teacher is critical in all this, in the success of whatever we are going to do. I'm looking at pulling all our brains together to ensure that the teacher we have, the teacher who is very well trained, a teacher who is highly motivated. That will also mean, first of all, a lot of work will be done, will have to be done in the teacher training institutions. A lot of work will be done to look into their welfare and payment and salary, welfare and salary, even accommodation.
This was during an interview at his home at Mbalala Mukono, where he commended President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for reappointing him in the same office.
When His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is appointing me Minister in the Education sector, I would like to use this opportunity to thank His Excellency, the President of Uganda, for this appointment. I want to thank him for the trust he has in me. I want to thank His Excellency, the President, for recognizing my contribution to the development of this country. May I also use the same chance to thank our Mama, Janet Museveni, for the care and the support, and also for congratulate her for the reappointment. Mama has guided us, Mama has supported us. We thank her and congratulate her for that.
On the issue of some parents who already paid school fees before the school's lockdown, Muyingo appealed to them to remain calm and encourage school administrators not to charge against parents when they resume teaching.
Term had not come to an end. We just broke off halfway. So the money that was paid in the schools as in the form of school fees for this term should be enough money to cater for the education of these children when they come back to complete the term. So I do not, and we do not expect schools to charge extra fees for the extent for the continuation and the completion of this term. The amount of money that had been paid for this term should be the same amount of money to push the schools through the next learning period.
He also encourages school proprietors to continue emphasizing the teaching of sciences and vocational skills and warned that schools without science laboratories and vocational studies will not be licensed. Salongo Freddy Kasibanti compiled this report.
Karamojongs are known to be among the livestock-keeping tribes of Uganda with the largest herds of cattle. Possession of cattle and other livestock is a Karamojong culture and the expansive savanna grassland in the largely semi-arid area.
Atekaya is a word commonly used by Karamojong tribes whose origin is traced to Nyangatomo in Ethiopia, Turkana in Kenya, and those in the northern part of Uganda. These ethnic groups of people are characterized by possession of large herds of cattle, mainly for marriage and not economic purposes. The Karamojong are renowned pastorists who wander with their livestock in search for pasture and water for their herds of cattle. In Karamoja region, for one to be considered a man, he must be in possession of livestock, and the more the animals, the more respect one commands in the community.
Karamoja keep a lot of cows. One is for prestige, so that they can win respect within the community.
These herds are used as bride price and not necessarily economic benefits, according to Elder Zakaya.
And then we keep for marriage.
The minimum bridal price for one to marry in Karamoja is at least 15 cows, given to the bride's family.
But a minimum, at the most, according to them, it must be at the most 15, together with the goats inside. The
Karamojong also take blood portions from these animals, usually drunk raw as part of breakfast.
We even take blood in two forms. Can take in a liquid form, mixed with milk, that we call a charakan. And we take also in a raw form, in a banty form.
Besides income, bride price and prestige, among others, the animals help Karamojongs as they provide them with skin, which is used for making drums, shoes, and mats.
They honor a cow because they get a lot of things from a cow.
Because there we benefit from them. We get the skin, the hide, that is for sleeping. We also get our sandals.
Karamojong love for cattle and how they have continuously protected them from rustlers is show of the firmness. Story compiled by Yusuf Obo for UBC News.
Uganda Wildlife Authority has reopened ZIWA RHINO Sanctuary to the public and resumed all the tourist activities at the sanctuary. With reopening of the sanctuary, Executive Director of UWA noted that the old fees will be maintained and all tourist movements will not be interfered with by partial lockdown district movements restrictions put in place to curb on the spread of coronavirus.
This is the ZIWA RHINO Sanctuary, a home to over 33 southern white rhinos, other wildlife species, and the nucleus of bird species. Before any tourist is ushered in, one has to strictly follow the standard operating procedures put in place, like hand washing, temperature checked, and personal details noted. RHINO Fund Uganda negotiated a lease agreement with ZIWA RHINO and Wildlife Ranch, which was to run 30 years. Unfortunately, they disagreed and RHINO Fund left, so the rhinos were handed over to Uganda Wildlife Authority. It should be noted that on 20th April 2021, Uganda Wildlife Authority took a drastic measure to close the sanctuary after a misunderstanding ensued between ZIWA RHINO and Wildlife Ranch and RHINO Fund Uganda. After 3 months of constant consultation and engagement with the two parties, in a joint statement by Uganda Wildlife Executive Director Sam Wanda on behalf of Uganda Wildlife Authority and ZIWA RHINO and Wildlife Ranch, the facility has resumed all tourism activities at the sanctuary.
Comes after UWA and ZIWA RHINO and Wildlife Sanctuary agreed to jointly manage the sanctuary and continue the rhino breeding program after the departure of RHINO Fund Uganda and the NGO that was managing the rhinos before. The two parties are in the process of negotiating a corporate agreement that will promote rhino breeding and management of tourism operations at the sanctuary.
We've agreed on the principles of the MOU, and all we're waiting for is to ratify that MOU. And for that, I give a lot of compliments to the Director of Conservation, Mr. Makombo. And I think you'll agree with me that there is absolutely nothing that is an impediment to this agreement. So therefore, be assured that the agreement will be signed. We just want to ratify it. And I think we are working with sober people.
It should be noted that since 2005, Uganda Wildlife Authority has been managing and giving security to the rhinos at the ZIWA Ranch Sanctuary. The ranch, that is close to 72 square kilometers, is small for the increasing rhino numbers, and thus Uganda Wildlife Authority is contemplating to translocate them to other national parks.
So working on the transfer of some, not all, some of the rhinos to a national park. And we want to do that as soon as possible. The only limiting factor is that we do not have the resources now because of the impacts of COVID that have reduced our revenue. But as soon as we get the money, we'll move some of the rhinos away from here because this place has a limit on the numbers.
Uganda Wildlife Authority and ZIWA RHINO and Wildlife Sanctuary will coordinate and jointly deploy staff at the sanctuary, with Uganda Wildlife Authority taking the central role of rhino security and monitoring. Mwanda says the partial closure of the inter-district movement will not necessarily affect tourists as long as they observe the standard operating procedures. Uganda Wildlife Authority assured the public that the rhino sanctuary will continue to be a center of excellence for the rhino breeding and will cooperate with the neighboring communities to safeguarding the rhinos. Zahra Abigaba, UBC.
We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be back with more stories.
Today in history.
Today, the 11th June 2021, marks 24 years since the death of the late Herman Basude, who died on 11th June 1997 in a car accident. Basude was a Ugandan Kadongo Kamu musician who was born on 5th December 1959 in Masaka district in southern Uganda. Famed for his powerful lyrics in songs like Bas Dunia and Muchala Mugerwa that were released in 1986, Basude was one of the most recognizable figures in the Kadongo Kamu genre and left a legacy that puts him among the legends of the Ugandan music industry. But above all, it is shocking that he chose to use a road accident to present the deterring livelihood only to end up dying in a real road accident in 1997, more in a manner of the Bas Dunia song.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Mukazanyo ka chess kisoboka ebitono okufuuka ebinene. Kyekimu wano na wano. Tunula nkaliriza buli lutambula. Wandiika buli namba osobole okweteekateeka obulungi. Tofuddeyo ku bunene bwa kirooto kyo. Manya nti abawanguzi b'enkya beeba bakuuma ebitabo byabwe nga biyonjo. Yanjula kati ennyingi zaayo n'enfulumya.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
In efforts to improve quality assurance and Uganda's competitiveness as a tourist destination, Uganda Tourism Board is set to undertake a nationwide grading and classification exercise of hotel and accommodation facilities. As a member of the East African community, Uganda subscribes to the East African Grading and Classification Criteria, a system denoted by stars ranging from 1 to 5. The grading and classification exercise will be crowned by the awarding of star ratings to facilities found compliant to the EAC minimum standards. This is therefore a call to all accommodation and facility owners and managers to register and get licensed by UTB as a requirement and get ready for participation. For more information, visit www.utb.go.ug or email qualityassurance@utb.go.ug for details. Uganda Tourism Board, promoting tourism together.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial *149*10# to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial *149*10*4#. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial *149*10# to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
You're still watching UBC News tonight at 10 p.m. In our business stories, Judiciary has declared the insufficient funds allocated to it in the just presented budget 2021-2022. Now, this was disclosed by the Judiciary spokesperson James Kademania in an exclusive interview with UBC News crew.
Judiciary had requested over 800 billion to address its administration issues and to see that all Ugandans have access to justice, but have been allocated with 376.9 billion in the just presented budget. Judiciary spokesperson Jameson Kalimani says this is likely to affect service delivery in the judiciary works.
when you have limited number of judges, limited number of magistrates, limited number of the chief magistrates, it means that the ones we have are shouldering what would have been shouldered by more judges. Yeah, right now you'll find that a judge of High Court is shouldering work which would have been for at least almost 5 judges. It has implications of delayed justice because he cannot deliver justice the way he would wish because the workload is heavy.
Kalemani says the judicial had plans to eliminate the issue of case backlog.
Our target would be to have a magistrate grade 1 at every constituency level. That is what you may call a county. We wish to have a chief magistrate at every district. If you talk of region, we are talking about the traditional regions of saying Ankole, Winyoro, each one to have a high court circuit, court of appeals, which can cover certain areas, like you have a court of appeal in Mbale, you have a court of appeal in Fort Poto, Mbarara, Guru.
Although recent, Parliament approved the Administration of Judiciary Act of 2019 with the aim of managing the judicial administration works. However, Kalemani says this was not the only solution to address all judiciary issues.
The Act is operationalized in the sense that this budget which they have catered for went through the President to Parliament, which was not the case before. The case before were all bundled in the Ministry of Justice and then presented to Parliament. And the money that it requires to use is drawn from the basket, which basket is a basket where all other sectors draw their funding. So when we draw our budget, it has also to be funded according to the availability of funds. We can't say that when we want 800, it is 800, regardless of where it will come from. So we still hope that as we go along, financial year after financial year, if we can keep receiving this kind of increment, we shall be able to achieve what we are looking at.
According to 2021-2022 budget, 9.4 billion is meant for construction of Court of Appeal in Gulu and Mbarara, High Court circuits in Luwera and Soloti, Magistrate Courts in Wudaka, Arubatonga and Lyantonde, Grade 1 Magistrate Courts in Abim, Patong, Kalenga and Chazanga. The 146.6 billion is for recruiting and facilitation of judicial staff, and 18.2 billion has been approved to implement the electronic court case management information system and the prosecution case management information system. Deborah Namamonde, Nantongo Rebecca, UBC News.
The Member of Parliament for Ntegeru North, Amos Lugorobi, presented a program-driven budget for financial year 2021-2022 that amounts to 44 trillion shillings. Economists believe that if well streamlined, the aspirations in the budget will be achieved only if those that are met priorities are considered.
Uganda's debt to GDP stands at 63 trillion shillings, constituting 49.8%, which is slightly below the threshold of 50% of the GDP, above which a country faces a debt distress. The circumstances do not dictate that Uganda's debt to GDP ratio is a bad indicator because the economy continues to thrive.
And domestic investment also increased by 13%.
Governments can escape an increase of debt to GDP by cutting spending, but maintain spending on growth. Encourage central banks to cut interest rates for easy commercial lending. Governments can increase taxes as a way to pay off debt, though the increase in taxes should not affect GDP growth or affect consumers by diminishing their purchasing power. Furthermore, encourage growth through production and exportation.
But in the same breath, I would not encourage discussions around debt relief. Debt relief signals laziness. It signals the idea that get the money, spend it sheepishly for some time, go back and kneel down. They will forgive you.
In a study conducted by the World Bank, a ratio that exceeds 77% for an extended period of time may result in an adverse impact on economic growth, for which Uganda is still at average level.
In the region here, our debt to GDP is one of the lowest. Okay? Rwanda is well over into the 60s, going towards the 70s, so is Kenya and Tanzania. It's not about the ratio. The question is also, what is this money doing when you borrow it?
The national budget for financial year 2021-2022 will address poverty, unemployment and infrastructure for growth. Have been constructed in order to unlock the connectivity to cut down cost of trade.
The total national paved road network has increased by 41% from 3,800 kilometers in 2016 to 5,400 kilometers today.
We've had the standard gauge railway for how many years now? The talk, for some years now. That is supposed to be the silver bullet that will cut down cost of trade to transport our raw materials out and also help us. We're a net importer.
Rehabilitation of the Tororo-Gulu meter gauge railway has commenced, and 79% of the land for the construction of the standard gauge rail has been acquired.
More funds will be channeled to group-based targets in order to alleviate poverty. Each parish will bag 30 million shillings for a start. This is meant to support agro-industrialization.
Get that resource, structure it into the actual channels that need to be going through there to give you the sustainable bits as opposed to handouts. Handouts have a connotation of free. They encourage the idea that my government has given me.
The expenditure of borrowed money on mega projects that end up having shoddy work needs to be given much attention.
For anything that goes wrong for a project around its beginning and then, oh no, the project is not ready, has no feasibility study, it should be an indictment to the development committee. That shouldn't happen. That should be the first goalkeeping for bad project planning.
The National Budget 2021-2022 concentrates on the program-based financing. Ivan Kahwa and Sebida Andrew, UBC News.
Well, in our sports stories, Toro United Football Club's bid to play in the Uganda Premier League has been boosted by a 113 million Ugandan shillings sponsorship from betting firm 1xBet. This comes a few days ahead of the do-or-die big league encounter against Kigezi Homeboys set for Sunday at Wangulukuku Stadium.
Football in Uganda continues to grow in appeal that attracts sponsors. Toro United has become the latest to benefit from 1xBet that has pumped 113.8 million shillings.
We are going to consider it. It's like the good cooperation. Good cooperation entails everything. Yes, once we keep together, we keep with that good cooperation, everything will go on well.
The occasion, although late in the season, witnessed unveiling of the team's home, away and travel kit. Toro United plays in the second tier of Uganda's football and has the blessings of not only fans in Fort Portal City, but also big wigs in the area like MP Alex Ruhunda and Mayor Asaba Edison.
It is a field where if you really know your skill, there is no racism in that skill. You will earn more than professors and presidents.
We shall also look around and see what contribution we can also make. But I think we can, first and foremost, start by buying shares so that we can be part and partial of the team.
Toro United attops the FUFA Big League Rwenzori Grouper with 28 points and know that victory over Kigezi Homeboys this weekend at Wangulukuku Stadium will secure direct passage to the Uganda Premier League.
Well, first of all, we have prepared these boys physically and mentally, and I hope if they can adapt, if they can put in place whatever we have told them, there's no doubt we are going to win Sunday's match.
Club President Alice Namatov is certain this sponsorship is timely and will boost morale.
If a company comes on board to give us a boost at this crucial moment,
it's a very big boost for us as a club. The players, the technical bench, and the whole team.
The FIFA Big League is played first through a group phase that climaxes this weekend with 8 games on the cards. The top 2 teams from the 2 groups gain direct qualification to the Uganda Premier League. Currently, Toro United leads the Rwenzori group, while Arua Hills is atop the Elgon. The second and third place teams from each group contest a playoff semi-final and final, whose winner completes the quarter in the top league. John Barnes, Sentamo, reporting.
Well, that's all we had for you for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch UBC News tonight at 10 p.m. with me, Sharon Kyomugisha. Have a lovely night from the team and I, and you can stay tuned for more programming coming your way.
Most people never notice that all them want and need.
This special day, a legend comes on your national TV. When you think of legends, you can't figure out DJ Dan Starboy, the reggae and dancehall ambassador.